Have you ever found yourself standing in the eye of a storm, not a tempest of wind and rain, but one of words, expectations, and the subtle aggressions of daily life, and wondered how some individuals seem to navigate these squalls with an almost unnerving calm? Conversely, perhaps you've noticed, as the chapters of your own life turn, that the very things which once slid off your back like water now cling with a persistent, wearying weight. A thoughtless remark, a piece of unsolicited advice offered with more judgment than help, the casual trampling of personal boundaries. These moments, though perhaps unacknowledged externally, can lodge within us, cultivating a hidden garden of stress that silently erodes our well-being. What if the secret to navigating this increasingly complex emotional landscape isn't about developing a thicker skin or a colder heart, but about cultivating a deeper, more resilient wisdom? This exploration is not about quick fixes or clever retorts designed to win fleeting skirmishes. Instead, we will delve into 8 profound transformations, powerful currents of change that can guide you towards an unshakable inner steadiness, a grounded presence that remains unperturbed as you age, irrespective of the cacophony of external opinions or behaviors. These are not mere theories plucked from a self-help manual. They are enduring shifts in mindset, born from the crucible of lived experience. They echo the quiet strength of a soul that has journeyed long enough to discern which battles are worth the fight and which opinions merit even a moment of precious attention. Crucially, they illuminate the liberating truth that you are not obligated to carry burdens that are not yours. The journey to this kind of peace can offer a profound sense of liberation, freedom from persistent frustration, from the shackles of unwarranted guilt, and from the insidious theft of your tranquility by the actions of others. Whether you are navigating your 60s, 70s, 80s, or beyond, these principles can illuminate a path towards a life lived with a clearer mind and a heart remarkably, wonderfully lighter. Does this resonate with your own experiences? Have you felt this growing sensitivity to the world's sharper edges over time? Share a yes. In the comments below if this feeling is familiar to you. Your voice is part of this shared human experience. 1. The unspoken power of choosing silence over reaction, cultivating inner stillness. As the tapestry of our lives grows richer with experience, one of the most liberating truths we can embrace is the profound power inherent in choosing not to respond. Imagine a world where not every comment necessitates a reply, not every differing opinion demands correction, and not every disrespectful tone succeeds in siphoning off your precious energy. This conscious choice of silence, particularly when faced with someone attempting to provoke or entangle you in unnecessary drama, is not a banner of weakness. It is the quiet, unshakable emblem of wisdom. It signifies that you have transcended the adolescent urge to constantly prove your point or to exhaust yourself fighting to be understood by an audience that, frankly, may not be truly listening. When you reach a certain vintage in life, your inner peace often becomes a currency far more valuable than the fleeting satisfaction of being right. You begin to recognize with a clarity born of observation that individuals determined to misunderstand you will invariably succeed, regardless of how eloquently or passionately you articulate your perspective. More often than not, those who actively seek to stir unrest in you are grappling with their own internal tempests. Their loudness is a symptom of their disquiet, their tendency to pick at others often a reflection of their own self-dissatisfaction. Their inclination to talk over you, a manifestation of their fear of being truly seen or heard. So, when you meet their turbulence with silence, not a cold, dismissive silence, but a calm, anchored presence, you are erecting an invisible shield around your emotional space. You are choosing to remain firmly rooted instead of being swept into the maelstrom of another's making. This isn't about a lack of care. It's a conscious decision that your care, your emotional investment, is too precious to be squandered on those who have not earned the privilege of its bestowal. Consider the story of Paul, a gentleman of 74, who for years found himself ensnared in a cycle of agitation. Every time his brother-in-law delivered a subtly snide comment, no matter how seemingly minor, Paul would internalize it, allowing it to fester and cloud his days with resentment. The constant tension became a familiar yet unwelcome companion. But one day, weary of this self-imposed emotional tax, Paul made a quiet internal resolution. At the next family gathering, when the inevitable barbed remark was launched his way, he simply nodded, offered a gentle acknowledgement, and returned his attention to his meal. No defensive comeback, no furrowed brow, just a calm, almost imperceptible shift. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Paul felt an unexpected surge of strength, not weakness, as he might have once feared, but an empowering sense of control. For the first time, he realized he was no longer ceding his emotional reins to this other person. That, precisely, is the shift. When you cease to react impulsively, you begin the powerful process of reclaiming your energy. You discover that the less you feel compelled to say in such moments, the more profound your inner peace becomes. And this change does not go unnoticed. When someone who was previously quick to defend or engage no longer takes the bait, it sends an unspoken yet potent message. I am no longer a participant in this particular game. My energy is reserved for pursuits more worthy of my time. And the truth is, you do have better things to do. You carry within you years of accumulated lessons, of growth forged in experience. You have unequivocally earned the right to allow certain things to pass without comment. The next time someone attempts to rattle your composure, try this. Take a slow, deliberate breath. Perhaps meet their gaze for a moment and then, with quiet dignity, say nothing. You might even choose to calmly walk away, secure in the knowledge that you have just spared yourself hours, perhaps even days, of unnecessary stress over a moment that never truly deserved your peace. That was the first powerful shift towards an unbothered existence. If you find this insight about choosing silence valuable and see ways to apply it in your own life, please comment with the number 1 below to let us know. Your engagement helps us understand what resonates most with you. Number 2, drawing your line. Emotional boundaries without the burden of guilt. One of the most challenging yet profoundly rewarding lessons we often learn later in life is that uttering the word no does not automatically brand you as rude, and creating distance from certain individuals or situations does not signify a personal failure. Instead, these actions are powerful testaments to your growing ability to protect your inner peace. For many of us, particularly those raised in environments that prized politeness, helpfulness, and agreeableness above all else, the ingrained habit is to prioritize the needs and comforts of others, often at the significant expense of our own well-being. This pattern, repeated over decades, can become so deeply woven into the fabric of our being that we scarcely question its validity. However, as the years accumulate, a clearer vision emerges. Your emotional space is sacred, a personal sanctuary, and not everyone has earned an unrestricted access pass. Emotional boundaries are far more nuanced than simply dictating what others can or cannot do around you. They are about cultivating an acute self-awareness, recognizing the precise moments when you begin to feel drained, disrespected, or overwhelmed by an interaction, and then, crucially, taking corrective action without the heavy cloak of apology or justification. You can embody kindness without making yourself perpetually available for every request that comes your way. You can hold deep love for people in your heart without permitting them to metaphorically or literally walk through your front door at all hours, or to unload the full weight of their unprocessed stress onto you every time they find themselves upset. Affirming, this particular dynamic or this level of engagement isn't healthy for me right now, is not an act of selfishness. It is an essential act of emotional survival. You may notice, as you begin to tentatively or firmly erect these boundaries, that some individuals in your life react unfavorably. They might push back, attempt to induce guilt, or subtly or overtly try to make you feel as though you are being distant, cold, or unfair. It's vital to understand that such reactions often say far more about their own sense of entitlement or their discomfort with a shift in the established dynamic than they do about your legitimate need for emotional space. People who genuinely care for your well-being, who value your authentic self, will, in time, understand and respect your needs. Conversely, those who primarily valued you for what they could take from you or for the role you played in their life will struggle. And this clarity, as potentially painful as it can be in the short term, is often precisely the discernment you need to cultivate healthier relationships. Take the example of Rose, a vibrant woman of 67. For decades, she had been the designated crisis manager for her extensive circle of family and friends. She showed up for everyone, a pillar of strength, but in doing so, she consistently neglected herself. A significant health scare, however, served as an undeniable wake-up call. Her doctor, in no uncertain terms, instructed her to drastically reduce her stress levels or risk serious long-term complications. This stark advice catalyzed a profound shift. Rose began by gently limiting calls from one particular friend, a person who invariably dominated conversations with a litany of new disasters, rarely pausing to inquire about Rose's own life. Initially, Rose wrestled with immense guilt, but after a few weeks of this new boundary, she noticed remarkable changes. The persistent tightness in her shoulders began to ease, her overall mood lifted, and she found herself with a surprising reservoir of newfound energy. She hadn't stopped caring for her friend. She had simply stopped allowing that friendship to deplete her beyond her capacity to give sustainably. And herein lies a crucial truth. You do not need to wait for a crisis to grant yourself permission to protect your emotional well-being. That permission is inherently yours, always. You have likely spent years tending to the needs of others. Now, it is not just okay, but essential to extend that same level of care and protection to yourself. Your peace, your energy, and your emotional stability are not endlessly renewable resources. They will deplete if you consistently give too much away without replenishing your own well. The beautiful paradox is that when you diligently protect these vital aspects of yourself, you actually become more authentically available and present for the people who truly matter, showing up with a full heart rather than one running on fumes. This strengthens every meaningful relationship in your life, most importantly, the one you have with yourself. Setting boundaries can be one of the most empowering yet challenging steps. Have you ever struggled with this, or have you found a way to set healthy limits? Share your experience in the comments, or simply type boundaries if point 2 resonates deeply with you. And if these insights are proving helpful on your journey, a quick like on this video and a subscribe to the channel would mean the world to us, helping us reach more people like you. 3. The art of selective hearing, tuning out to tune in to your inner peace. There is a profound and often underestimated liberation that comes with mastering the art of ignoring what does not serve your emotional or mental well-being, a skill that becomes increasingly valuable with age. This isn't merely about the physical act of turning down the volume on a noisy television or strategically walking away from a loud environment. It's about a much deeper, more intentional act of tuning out emotionally. It involves developing the discernment to recognize which words, opinions, and ambient energies are worthy of your precious attention and which are best allowed to drift by like clouds in the sky, acknowledged but not internalized. Let's be candid. Not everything uttered by those around us is intended to be helpful, constructive, or kind. Some individuals speak primarily to be heard, irrespective of the content. Others communicate as a means of control, seeking to influence or manipulate. And still others may be unconsciously attempting to draw you into their own emotional turbulence. If you were to allow every voice, every opinion, every subtle emotional current to penetrate your inner world without a filter, you would inevitably find yourself feeling overwhelmed, agitated, and chronically confused. This isn't a reflection of personal weakness, but rather a consequence of being too porous, too open to external stimuli without a mechanism for self-protection. Selective hearing, in this context, is not an act of rudeness or dismissiveness. It is a vital form of emotional self-preservation. It is you consciously choosing to curate what gains entry into your internal emotional system. When someone initiates a conversation that immediately feels off, perhaps it's laden with gossip, steeped in unwarranted criticism, or swirling with the chaotic energy of drama, you do not have an obligation to lean in, to engage, or to absorb it. You can offer a polite nod, subtly shift your attention elsewhere, or quietly and gracefully exit the space. The key is to understand that you can hear what is being said without absorbing its emotional weight. You can be physically present in a situation without becoming an active participant in its negativity. And here's where this practice becomes even more potent. You can apply the same principle of selective attention to the often noisy landscape of your own mind. When your inner voice begins to echo old criticisms, dredge up past regrets, or engage in relentless second-guessing, you don't have to automatically grant these thoughts credence. You can train yourself to recognize that not every thought that arises is objectively true, and not every memory, particularly those tinged with pain or shame, deserves continuous airtime. Often that critical inner voice learned many of its lines from people whose advice you wouldn't dream of taking today. Consider Walter, a thoughtful man of 79. He shared with me how he used to become incredibly rattled whenever political discussions erupted at his local community center. The arguments, the raised voices, the palpable tension. It would stay with him for the rest of the day, souring his mood and disturbing his peace. Then, one day, he made a conscious decision to stop engaging. He would still hear the surrounding noise, of course, but instead of getting drawn in, he would offer a gentle inner smile and think to himself, that is not my circus, and those are not my monkeys to manage. That's not mine to fix. He would then deliberately refocus his attention on his coffee, the pages of his book, or the anticipated pleasure of his walk afterward. The result? Walter felt demonstrably lighter. He wasn't checked out or disengaged from life. He was simply more centered, more in control of his own internal state. He had chosen where to place his most valuable asset, his attention, and that single choice transformed his daily experience. The truth is, the older you become, the more undeniably precious your attention becomes. Where you choose to place it is, in large part, what determines the quality and peacefulness of your day. So instead of fruitlessly attempting to control the behavior and pronouncements of everyone else, a task that, let's face it, rarely yields success, begin to exercise control over your own internal filter. Tune out the frequencies that leave you feeling tense, agitated, or diminished. Tune in with intention to the people, activities, and thoughts that ground you, uplift you, and bring you a sense of calm. Not everyone has earned the right to speak into the sacred space of your life. And remember, just because you hear something doesn't mean you are obligated to take it in, to believe it, or to let it define your emotional state. This kind of sophisticated mental and emotional filter isn't just a helpful tool, it's a vital necessity, especially if your desire is to move through the remaining chapters of your life with greater ease, enhanced clarity, and a significant reduction in needless frustration. Point 3 delves into the crucial skill of reclaiming your mental and emotional space through selective attention. Do you find yourself easily drawn into others' drama, or are you adept at tuning out what doesn't serve you? Comment with the number 3 below if learning to intentionally tune out is a skill you recognize as valuable or one you'd like to cultivate further. 4. The liberation of letting go, releasing the profound need to be universally liked. One of the heaviest, yet often invisible, burdens that many older individuals carry, sometimes without even consciously recognizing its presence, is the persistent, deep-seated need to be liked by everyone. This yearning for universal approval is a seed often planted early in life. We are frequently socialized to be agreeable, to seamlessly fit in, to smooth over interpersonal frictions, even when doing so means silencing our own discomfort or betraying our authentic feelings. For a vast number of us, this habit of people-pleasing becomes so automatic, so ingrained, that it operates on autopilot. We don't even pause to question its utility or its cost. We just keep striving to please, to be liked, to avoid ruffling feathers or upsetting anyone, anywhere, anytime. But then, at a certain juncture in life's journey, perhaps during a quiet moment of reflection or after a particularly draining interaction, you might look around and have a startling realization. You have expended an immeasurable amount of precious energy attempting to earn the approval of people who, in many cases, barely understand you, or worse, may not even particularly value the authentic you. The unvarnished truth is this: not everyone will like you. And this is not a reflection of your inadequacy or a personal failure. It is, quite simply, a fundamental aspect of human existence. Some people will misunderstand your intentions, actively dislike your personality, or profoundly disagree with your values for reasons that often have very little, if anything, to do with who you truly are. Perhaps you inadvertently remind them of someone from their past with whom they had a negative experience. Maybe your quiet confidence or your unique way of being makes them uncomfortable. Or perhaps they simply gravitate towards people who are more overtly similar to themselves. Whatever the underlying reason, it is unequivocally not your responsibility to shrink yourself, to diminish your light, or to contort your personality to fit neatly into their prescribed comfort zone. Letting go of the pervasive need to be liked by all does not necessitate becoming cold, aloof, or rude. Instead, it means courageously choosing authenticity over the performance of people-pleasing. It involves being respectful in your interactions, yet clear and firm in your boundaries, kind in your demeanor, but not disingenuously fake. And most significantly, it means cultivating an inner state of being okay, truly okay, with the knowledge that the right people will like and appreciate you for the right reasons. Not because you have bent over backward, engaging in emotional gymnastics to earn their favor, but because you have consistently shown up as your full, honest, and unapologetic self. Susan, a woman of 70 with a gentle smile and wise eyes, shared a story with me that remains vividly etched in my memory. For many years, she had maintained a dutiful silence during family dinners, particularly when certain relatives made comments that subtly or not so subtly rubbed her the wrong way. She didn't want to start anything, as she put it, so she would simply smile, nod politely, and swallow her discomfort, letting it settle like a stone in her stomach. But one day, she had an epiphany. She simply no longer possessed the emotional energy for that kind of pretense. So she stopped pretending. When something bothered her, she began to voice her perspective, always calmly, without resorting to drama or aggression. The outcome was surprising. Some family members, uncomfortable with this newfound assertiveness, created a bit of distance, but others, intriguingly, leaned in. They expressed appreciation for her honesty, for her willingness to be real. And most importantly, Susan herself felt demonstrably lighter, as if a significant weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She was no longer performing. She was simply being. There is a unique and profound kind of peace that blossoms when you internalize the truth that you don't have to be everyone's favorite person, that you don't need to win every popularity contest. You can navigate life without constantly bending to others' expectations, without ceaselessly apologizing for your existence, and without feeling responsible for managing the emotional reactions of those around you. When you no longer rely on external approval as the primary source of your self-worth, you become remarkably unshakable. The opinions of others, whether positive or negative, cease to hold you hostage. You have lived long enough, experienced enough, to know your own intrinsic worth, independent of external validation. So, remind yourself frequently, the people who truly matter, the ones whose presence genuinely enriches your life, will respect you all the more when you are honest and true to yourself. And as for the ones who drift away when you stop the people-pleasing charade, they were, in all likelihood, never truly with you, for you in the first place. This is a significant realization for many. If releasing the deep-seated need to be liked by everyone, as we've explored in point 4, feels like a pathway to genuine freedom for you, please type freedom in the comments section below. We genuinely love hearing how these ideas and perspectives connect with your personal journey toward peace. 5. The sacred pause. Finding wisdom in the space between stimulus and response. One of the most underrated yet profoundly transformative skills you can cultivate, particularly as you navigate the complexities of aging, is learning to master the pause. This isn't about freezing in indecision or suppressing your genuine emotions. Rather, it's about intentionally creating a small, almost imperceptible gap, a moment to take a conscious breath before you respond to an external stimulus, be it someone else's words, actions, or a challenging situation. It is within this quiet, often fleeting moment, this sacred interlude between provocation and reaction, that true peace resides. This is the fertile ground where wisdom gets a precious opportunity to emerge before less considered impulses like anger, sarcasm, or words laden with potential regret can take center stage. As the years gracefully accumulate, you begin to realize, often through the hard-won lessons of experience, that a significant portion of life's regrets don't stem from the emotions we felt, for feelings themselves are neutral messengers, but from the words we uttered or the actions we took before we afforded ourselves that crucial chance to think, to reflect, to choose. There's a valid reason why older individuals are often characterized as calm, measured, or possessing a certain gravitas. It's generally not because they cease to feel emotions as intensely as their younger counterparts. Instead, it's often because they've had more opportunities, more lived experiences, to learn the vital discernment of what truly warrants an immediate, energetic reaction, and what is better met with a more considered, deliberate response, or perhaps no overt response at all. That invaluable pause allows you to reclaim control. It's an internal declaration that says, I have heard you, I have registered this event, but I and I alone get to decide how I will respond. And that, in essence, is the key. It places you firmly back in the driver's seat of your own behavior and emotional state. When you react instantly, almost on reflex, you are, in a sense, giving away your personal power to the external trigger. But when you consciously pause, you are engaging in a profound act of self-dialogue, telling yourself, let's check in first. Let's consider the wisest course of action here. You might still choose to respond firmly. You might even decide that walking away is the most appropriate action, but crucially, you will do so from a place of clarity and intention, rather than from the heated, often distorted perspective of an immediate emotional surge. I recall an older gentleman named Jim, a man of 82, who exuded a remarkable sense of groundedness, one of the most centered individuals I've had the privilege to meet. He shared that years ago, he used to get easily fired up over almost anything: political debates on the television, the perceived inconsiderateness of noisy neighbors, the daily onslaught of troubling news. However, after navigating a few significant health scares and engaging in long, reflective conversations with his doctor about the impact of chronic stress, Jim made a firm decision. He no longer wanted to live in a perpetual state of irritation. So he implemented one deceptively simple rule for himself. He would wait a full 5 seconds before responding to anything that provoked him. No matter what someone said, no matter how much it initially bothered him, he committed to giving himself those 5 seconds. He once told me, with a twinkle in his eye, sometimes I use those 5 seconds to just breathe deeply. Sometimes I use them to offer a quick, silent prayer. And sometimes, often quite effectively, I use them to decide to say nothing at all. And that precisely is the transformative shift. Because in those brief 5 seconds, Jim found space. He found space to check in with his own internal state, space to objectively assess the situation, space to decide if the person or event truly deserved his precious emotional energy, and most importantly, space to protect his heart and his health from unnecessary stress. It may not sound like a monumental change, but its impact on his daily life was, by his own account, nothing short of revolutionary. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a neighbor makes a passive-aggressive comment that stings, when a family member tests your patience for the 10th time in a week, that single conscious breath, that brief moment of cultivated stillness, can be the pivotal difference between escalating a situation into further conflict and maintaining your hard-won inner peace. You've reached a stage in life where you have nothing left to prove to anyone. And in those moments when others seem intent on provoking you, the quiet, unshakable strength you demonstrate by simply pausing, by choosing your response thoughtfully, speaks volumes louder and more eloquently than any hastily delivered comeback ever could. Mastering the pause. It's a simple yet profound technique for navigating life with greater wisdom. If you're finding these strategies valuable, and if point 5 particularly struck a chord with you, we'd love to hear it. Let us know by commenting with the number 5 below. And if you're already subscribed, please remember to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future insights designed to support your journey. 6. The "it's rarely about me" revelation, deflecting undeserved negativity with wisdom. One of the most profoundly helpful and peace-inducing realizations you can fully internalize as you age is this: when someone lashes out, criticizes unfairly, or behaves in a way that stings or confuses you, it is almost never, at its core, truly about you. People invariably bring their own intricate histories, their hidden pains, their deep-seated insecurities, and their accumulated disappointments into every interaction they have. More often than not, the way they treat you, their tone, their words, their actions, says far more about the landscape of their own inner world, about the battles they are silently fighting within themselves, than it does about anything you have specifically said or done. However, when we forget this fundamental truth, we make the common and costly mistake of taking everything personally. And that is precisely where the trouble, the unnecessary suffering, begins. Think about it for a moment. Someone snaps at you unexpectedly while you're waiting in line at the grocery store. A friend, usually warm and communicative, suddenly becomes oddly distant and uncharacteristically curt. A family member makes a comment that feels less like a casual observation and more like a thinly veiled dig, designed to make you feel small. The immediate, almost instinctual human reaction is often to turn inward and wonder, what did I do wrong? How have I caused this? But when you've lived long enough, when you have observed the myriad complexities of human behavior over decades, you begin to see the recurring patterns with greater clarity. People who are hurting inside, often, consciously or unconsciously, spill that hurt onto the nearest available person. This isn't usually because that person deserves to be the target, but because unexpressed pain, much like contained pressure, has a tendency to seek an outlet. It has to go somewhere. And if an individual doesn't possess healthy coping mechanisms to process or contain their own emotional distress, it inevitably leaks out, often onto undeserving recipients. When you start to consciously and consistently remind yourself in these challenging moments, this likely isn't about me, you begin to create a vital emotional buffer. You stop absorbing the other person's mood, their negativity, their unprocessed angst, as if it were your personal burden to carry and resolve. This mental shift allows you to observe their behavior with a degree of detachment without immediately internalizing it and making it a reflection of your own worth or actions. And that small psychological distance, that subtle but powerful buffer, can protect your inner peace more effectively than almost any other strategy. Let me share the story of Ruth, a gracious woman of 76. For months, she had been troubled by her neighbor, who always seemed sharp, short-tempered, and unapproachable whenever their paths crossed. Ruth, a kind-hearted soul, naturally assumed she must have done something to offend her. For months, she found herself avoiding her own porch if the neighbor was out, skipping opportunities for small talk, and generally tiptoeing around the palpable tension that hung in the air between their properties. The situation weighed heavily on her mind. But one day, as fate would have it, they both ended up at their respective mailboxes at the exact same time. Taking a deep breath, Ruth decided to offer a simple, kind smile. The neighbor paused, her usually stern expression softening almost imperceptibly, and then, quietly, with a voice heavy with weariness, she said, "My husband is in hospice. I'm barely sleeping these days." In that single, vulnerable moment, everything clicked into place for Ruth. The neighbor's curtness, her apparent irritability, it had absolutely nothing to do with Ruth and everything to do with the immense grief, stress, and exhaustion she was enduring. From that day forward, Ruth never took the neighbor's demeanor personally again. Instead, she offered quiet compassion, understanding that the behavior was a symptom of a much deeper, unseen struggle. This perspective isn't about making excuses for genuinely bad or abusive behavior. You can and should still hold people accountable for their actions when appropriate. You can and should still draw firm boundaries to protect yourself. But when you approach interactions with the understanding that someone's sharpness, their prolonged silence, or their biting sarcasm might be originating from a place of their own hidden pain, you liberate yourself from the exhausting task of carrying their emotional baggage on your back. You've lived long enough to know, with a certainty that only time can bestow, that the world does not, in fact, revolve around you. And paradoxically, this realization is incredibly freeing, because if every negative interaction isn't always about you, then you don't have to carry the crushing weight of other people's brokenness, their unresolved issues, or their momentary lapses in grace. You can stand firmly and calmly in your own sense of self, offer kindness when you have the capacity and when it feels appropriate, and strategically step back when you don't. Either way, their internal storm doesn't have to dictate your emotional weather. Understanding that it's rarely about you can indeed be a profound game changer in how we experience our interactions. What are your thoughts on this particular perspective from point 6? Does it resonate with your experiences? Share your insights by commenting with the keyword perspective below. Your engagement and shared wisdom are invaluable to our growing community. 7. The armor of experience, drawing unshakable strength from your life's overcome battles. As the years gracefully accumulate, it can become deceptively easy to forget, or perhaps to minimize, the sheer magnitude of what you have already survived, navigated, and overcome. Life has a way of piling on its challenges, its lessons, its sorrows, and its triumphs, often slowly and incrementally. Losses, disappointments, betrayals, physical aches, moments of profound doubt. Before you know it, you might feel as though you are walking around carrying the cumulative weight of decades upon your shoulders. But here's a crucial perspective shift that we often overlook. That perceived weight isn't solely a burden of heaviness. It is also irrefutable proof. It is proof that you have successfully made it through circumstances, trials, and tribulations that would have undoubtedly broken or overwhelmed a younger, less experienced version of yourself. It is tangible evidence that you have already faced and weathered storms that others, perhaps younger or less tested, are only now learning to navigate. And so, when someone in your present life attempts to rattle your composure, whether it's through unwarranted criticism, outright rudeness, or some petty, ill-conceived attempt to get under your skin, You have the capacity to meet that challenge with a quiet, unshakable confidence. This confidence isn't born of arrogance, but from a deep wellspring of clarity. It's the ability to look at the current moment, the current irritant, for what it truly is, often just another small, insignificant wave in the vast ocean of life that you have been successfully swimming in for your entire existence. This isn't arrogance. It's the wisdom of perspective. It's looking at the present annoyance and recognizing it as just that, a fleeting, relatively unimportant distraction that does not deserve to take up permanent residence in your mind or siphon off your precious emotional energy. This is precisely where your accumulated life experience transforms into a formidable shield, an invisible armor. Because when you truly know, deep in your bones, what you have already endured and triumphed over, you naturally stop ceding your power to individuals who haven't walked a single mile in your well-worn shoes. Their uninformed opinions begin to lose their bite. Their critical tone loses its sting. You start to see these minor interpersonal skirmishes for what they usually are: transient, largely inconsequential distractions that simply don't deserve to linger in your thoughts or disturb your hard-won peace. I once had the privilege of sitting on a park bench with Leonard, a remarkably insightful man of 80, who shared a piece of wisdom that I have never forgotten. He told me, with a calm certainty that resonated deeply, "At this age, I've developed a simple system. I measure all current problems against my past. If this new issue isn't bigger than burying my beloved wife, or losing my job during the recession, or going through rigorous cancer treatment and coming out on the other side, then, frankly, it's not worth more than a few minutes of my time, if that." That kind of profound perspective, that internal calibration system, isn't something you can glean from books or self-help seminars. It is earned. It is forged in the crucible of living through real, challenging, sometimes heartbreaking things, and still finding the strength, the resilience, the sheer will to get up and face the next day. So, the next time someone's opinion, attitude, or misunderstanding starts to bother you, to creep under your skin, pause for a moment. Take a breath and consciously ask yourself, compared to what I have already been through, what I have already overcome in my life, does this really deserve my sustained energy, my peace of mind? More often than not, if you are truly honest with yourself, the answer will be a resounding no. You have made it this far for a multitude of reasons. You have painstakingly built resilience layer by layer through every challenge faced and every adversity surmounted. You simply do not need to waste that hard-earned strength trying to win the approval of someone who doesn't know your story, or attempting to change the mind of someone determined to misunderstand you. The very moment you begin to stand firmly on your past experiences, drawing strength from them instead of trying to hide or forget them, is the moment you become remarkably unbothered, because you have earned your peace, and you are not only allowed, but empowered to protect it fiercely. Point 7 reminds us of the incredible inner strength forged through our life experiences. If you've found that reflecting on past challenges indeed helps you face current ones with greater perspective and resilience, please comment with the number 7 below. We deeply appreciate you being here and sharing this journey of reflection and growth with us. 8. The currency of connection. Investing your precious energy only in those who respect your peace. By the time you reach your 60s, 70s, 80s, or even beyond, you begin to grasp a fundamental truth about human interaction, a realization that has the power to profoundly reshape the way you engage with the people in your life. Not everyone deserves your finite and precious time, and even fewer individuals deserve the investment of your equally precious emotional energy. You start to develop a keen, almost intuitive sense, noticing with greater clarity which relationships consistently leave you feeling drained, depleted, or diminished, and conversely, which connections genuinely lift you up, inspire you, and contribute to your overall sense of well-being. You become more attuned to which conversations bring warmth, understanding, and a sense of mutual respect, and which ones leave you feeling small, second-guessed, uneasy, or simply exhausted. And when you truly begin to pay close, unwavering attention to these subtle but powerful energetic exchanges, everything begins to shift. Protecting your peace of mind in this context doesn't necessarily mean engaging in dramatic cutoffs or burning bridges with everyone who doesn't perfectly align with your needs. Sometimes it simply means being more discerning, more consciously selective about who gets prime access to your attention, your emotions, and the sacred space of your daily life. You can still hold love for someone in your heart while choosing to interact with them from a safe distance. You can maintain polite and civil relations without feeling obligated to invite their particular brand of chaos into your home, your mind, or your carefully cultivated sanctuary of peace. And the more you practice this kind of mindful emotional boundary setting, the more internal space you create, space that can then be filled by people who genuinely bring joy, safety, ease, and authentic connection into your life. Think of your attention and energy as a valuable, non-renewable currency. Every phone call you answer, every visit you host or accept, every conversation you engage in, either makes a deposit into your energy account or a withdrawal from it. The empowering truth is that you and you alone get to decide where and with whom this currency is spent. And when you truly internalize how much better, lighter, and more joyful life feels when you are predominantly surrounded by people who respect your space, honor your boundaries, and appreciate your authentic self, you naturally stop tolerating or making excuses for the ones who consistently fail to do so. There's a gentleman I know named Charles, a thoughtful man of 73. For many years, he used to spend almost every Sunday afternoon with a group of old friends from his working days. Over time, however, he began to realize with a growing sense of unease that their gatherings had devolved into a predictable litany of complaints. They complained about their wives, about the government, about their health, about the younger generation. Every time Charles returned home from these sessions, he felt inexplicably heavier, more cynical, and emotionally drained. Eventually, prompted by a quiet inner nudge, he decided to try something different. He politely excused himself from a few Sundays, using the time to potter in his garden instead. Then he started having a quiet lunch with his niece, whose company he genuinely enjoyed. He took a leisurely walk with a neighbor with whom he shared a love of nature. Within a month of these small but significant shifts, he shared with me a palpable sense of relief washing over his face. I feel so much lighter, more alive than I have in years. I didn't even realize how thoroughly drained I was by those Sunday gatherings until I wasn't anymore. That is precisely what happens when you consciously stop investing your limited time and energy in people or situations that systematically chip away at your peace, and instead begin to intentionally direct those precious resources towards people and activities that water your spirit, nourish your soul, and make your heart feel glad. This transition doesn't have to be dramatic or confrontational. You don't need to make grand pronouncements or issue ultimatums. Often, the most effective approach is a slow, quiet, deliberate shift in where your energy flows. Gently, almost imperceptibly, step away from the draining interactions and consciously move towards the nourishing ones. This isn't an act of selfishness. It is an act of profound wisdom and self-respect. You are honoring the undeniable fact that life is simply too short and your well-being too important to waste on perpetual loudmouths, emotional takers, or individuals who seem to expect you to dim your own light so that they can feel taller or more significant in comparison. You've got far better, more fulfilling things to do, like spending your precious time with people whose faces light up with a genuine smile when you walk into the room. People who ask how you are really doing and then listen, truly listen to your answer. People who allow you and indeed celebrate you for being fully and authentically yourself without requiring any performance, undue effort, or the exhausting tension of pretense. The older you get, the more sacred your time and energy become. So, protect these invaluable assets fiercely. Share them generously with the people who deserve them, the ones who reciprocate your respect and care. And allow the rest, those connections that no longer serve your highest good, to fade quietly and gracefully into the background, where they rightfully belong. Our final key insight, point 8, focuses on the critical importance of protecting your precious energy by choosing your connections wisely. Do you have people in your life who truly uplift you and respect your peace? We'd love for you to share a positive experience or simply comment with the word energy if this resonates deeply with your own approach to relationships. And if you haven't already, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more content designed to support your journey to a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Your support is deeply appreciated. As we draw this exploration to a close, take a moment to breathe deeply and allow these reflections to settle. You've journeyed through 8 powerful reminders, 8 distinct yet interconnected pathways, illuminating that the art of staying unbothered as you age isn't about cultivating indifference or ignoring the world around you. Instead, it is a profound act of honoring yourself. It's about internalizing the empowering truth that silence can be an extraordinary strength, that your inner peace is not a luxury but a fundamental necessity, and that you are under no obligation to explain, justify, or prove your worth to anyone who hasn't earned the sacred privilege of hearing your heart. From the quiet courage of setting emotional boundaries without guilt, to the mindful practice of tuning out unnecessary noise and negativity, from the liberating act of releasing old, ingrained approval-seeking habits, to the conscious and deliberate choice of where your precious energy flows, these are not mere mental tricks or superficial behavioral adjustments. They are potent tools for safeguarding the quality of the years you have worked so diligently to reach. You didn't navigate the myriad challenges and triumphs of life to arrive at this chapter only to spend your days feeling frustrated, perpetually drained, or helplessly entangled in someone else's unresolved mess. You came this far to live with an abundance of freedom, a depth of wisdom, and an ever-expanding reservoir of peace. So, let me ask you, as you reflect on these 8 shifts, which one, or perhaps which combination, stood out to you the most today? Was there a particular point that resonated deeply, that felt as if it struck a familiar chord within your own experience? Perhaps it was the empowering idea of reclaiming your calm amidst chaos, or maybe it was the liberating acceptance that not everyone needs to like you for you to value yourself. Whatever it was, hold on to that insight. Let it be a small, gentle seed of awareness that, with nurturing and consistent practice, can blossom into a significant and lasting positive change in your life over time. Remember, this is not a race to a finish line, but an ongoing journey of self-discovery and conscious living. Thank you for joining us today, for investing your time and attention in this shared exploration. We would genuinely love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave a comment below and share one specific thing you learned or were reminded of today, and perhaps how you envision incorporating it into your life moving forward. Your thoughts, experiences, and reflections are incredibly important to us and to the wider community we are building here. Please don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments provides us with great motivation, profound encouragement, and valuable insights that help shape future content. If you enjoyed this video and found its content helpful, insightful, or inspiring, we would be so grateful if you would express your appreciation by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and importantly, turning on the notification bell. This ensures that you won't miss out on future insightful and useful content designed to support your well-being and personal growth. Your support is the bedrock that allows us to continue creating and sharing meaningful content aimed at informing, inspiring, and uplifting our audience. Thank you for watching, and we eagerly look forward to seeing you in the next video. After all this analysis, what is the most important lesson you've learned for yourself? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And remember, the journey of self-care and cultivating inner peace is indeed a long and evolving one. The most powerful way to begin or to continue is with small, consistent steps, starting today.